Hi guys, we're here for Melomat TV. Today we are getting ready for a new interview once again with the Dark Horde. We have a lovely book right here. We are going to talk today about the concept album, prequel to the book of the Dark Horde, The Calling. We have here with us today Brewin, who is the master brain behind it all. We also have Logan Jacobs and Danny Ciccatti, both participating on the album today. So hi guys, how are you doing?
Good, hello,
Awesome,
how are you?
Awesome.
Good, thank you. So we'll
Awesome.
start with you, Brewin, author of the book. Very popular book, and by the way, if you haven't got it yet, I highly recommend it. If you're a fan of horror novels, it is full on. It is full on. So Brewin, tell us a little bit about what's behind the whole concept.
Yeah, so as you say, the book, I probably would describe it as full on myself. It's certainly, when I was writing it, I wanted it to have bite, to have impact. So anything that you might say, oh, you probably shouldn't put this in, or that's going a bit too far, I didn't have any of those filters.
No filters.
So it's set in '89. It's set in rural Victoria in Australia, and essentially it's about a remote township that is terrorised by the Dark Horde. And it was very soon after I was writing it, and especially having friends that were musicians and that sort of thing, I always thought, geez, wouldn't it be great to do a heavy metal album that expanded on the story, which is essentially where the idea of the album came along from. But both the book and the album, they both took a very long time to get together and finally make it real, as in a thing that's out there in the world for others to experience. But it's been an amazing journey. And
So wait, when you say it took a long time,
20 years.
20 years, yeah, something like that. I was gonna say it took quite a while, obviously.
yes,
But
yes.
when did you first start thinking? What was it first? So first, obviously, was the book that you thought of writing. So that was the
to
beginning
summarise
of things.
the whole arc of that. So it's set in '89, and I actually started writing it in '89. So
Wow. Okay.
back then, it was a modern day story. I was at and this features in the book, I called it Timber Home, but it's actually known as Timber Top, which is a campus of Geelong Grammar. It's basically a year which you spend up, it's near Mount Buller and that sort of area, so it's up in the high country. And you spend a whole year, it's almost like army camp. You do hikes every weekend, you do 2 cross-country runs a week, then you do a longer run, you've got to do chores, everyone's in their own dorms, you've got to chop your own wood, you've got to go out and collect the wood as well as chopping it to maintain wood stove boilers for hot water and all that sort of thing. So it's a pretty remote setting, and it I suppose it's one thing that often comes up in horror is that remote setting lends itself to that whole there's nowhere to go to get away from these
No
things.
escape, no help.
Yes, so that was where I started working. It wasn't known as the Dark Horde then, but a couple of years later I had a well-known Australian author, Margaret Clark. She became my mentor. She mentored myself and another well-known author who has gone on to many great things, Isabel Carmody. But it was Margaret Clark who mentored me. Penguin were interested back then. I didn't finish it. I started uni and went on to other things, but came back to the Dark Horde. And then by the time I was working on that again, that's when the ideas for the album started to come about. But being the sort of thing it is, and me myself, I'm not a musician, I'm not a singer, I'm not an actor. I needed to collaborate with others that were able to do that. And it's been a long journey of different lineups and different attempts, and there'll be different reasons. But if you believe in something and you think it's a good idea, you stick with it and you find a way eventually
To get it out there.
Here we are.
And so tell us a little bit. I mean, I know there's a lot of musicians helping you. There's a lot of singers, a lot of composers. Can you tell us who did you speak to first about that concept, and how it came out to be more and more people involved?
Yeah, so in terms of, because I mean there are different iterations, but in terms of, shall we say, this iteration, which to me is the culmination of everything which we've all worked on for so long, and it is the perfect and ultimate version, without a doubt. Hanny was the principal person in
So
terms
that's
of...
Hanny Mohammed from Black Majesty.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. He was the principal person. Without Hanny, this couldn't have happened. That's as simple as that. And it really needed someone with his expertise, his knowledge, and his drive to actually, do the things that are necessary to make it happen.
All the steps.
Yes. And then, then we also got Logan involved, who, very conveniently is my neighbour.
Very convenient. Logan, tell us about what you thought of the project in the first place, and what you decided to do for Brewin in terms of music.
It was really interesting. Like, what sticks out to my mind is the first time he mentioned it, we'd sort of known each other for a little bit. He mentioned it on the corner, so basically we live across the street from each other, just by circumstance, and we're sitting there at the front of my house having a chat. He's like, I'm doing this album, I've had this idea, you want to come on board and, try some stuff? And, jumped in, had a bit of a play, showed him some ideas I had, and I suppose the main thing he wanted to convince, and the idea was, much like Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, he wanted to have sort of like a soundtrack / heavy metal songs and just all these different ideas, and just getting that idea and understanding where he was coming from and what the concept of the album was.
And you, I believe you're guitarist. Is that right?
Predominantly, so myself, Hanny, and the other composers, we've all done mixtures of things. So we all share sort of like drums, bit of bass, keyboards, and things like that. But predominantly sort of keyboards and guitars. Right.
Okay. Gotcha. And yeah, so we spoke about the whole process, and the album is great. It is fantastic, and it is a good old heavy metal album. Like, so many people around the world that kind of still stuck in it, and they just want that rawness and all of that. And I mentioned rawness because of Danny's vocal, mainly Danny's vocals, which are always, they're that raw kind of heavy metal, powerful vocals. Did you always have him in mind for certain titles, and then have other singers for other titles? Did you work that out as you went, or you always had an idea?
Yeah, so, I mean, I suppose if you're talking over the scope of the 20-year period of different musicians, this and that, sometimes it changed. It really just depended on, who I was working with at that time and who we had in mind would fit that. But it was very clear to me, especially once Hanny was involved driving the music, that Danny would be the ultimate person to fill that role. I think Danny's vocals speak for themselves. They're amazing. They're passionate. You feel the whole angst of the character and the torment, and that it's authentic. It comes across. It's believable.
That's right.
And that was really important. And then getting another vocalist for the demon vocals as well, to create that contrast, as well as Kevin that does the narration, and then of course your other actors.
Yes, fair enough. Because I remember hearing The Mask for the first time, which is one of the titles on the album, and be blown away. And it's like, as much as I know Danny, because we've known each other for 15 years now or something, and as much as I know his vocals, there's still times where I hear him sing something different, from what he's used to, like with Wicked Smile, the same thing. And it's just, once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And what I mean by that, it's in a good way. What I mean by that is that you try to imagine or try to hear it in your head with another singer. And it's like the whole vibe is gone, because you bring that to the song, and your vocals in particular especially on that title, The Mask, is just, that's it. You're here, you go, yeah, all right, I'm hooked. Next.
Yeah, no,
And you
but,
just listen to the whole album.
that
But
was cool.
yeah, what was it for you? Like when Brewin first, I assumed, approached you and said, look, do you want to sing this? Because you've been writing all the lyrics to that album. So music's been composed pretty much by Hanny and Logan here.
Correct.
And then you came up with all the lyrics because you're not only, an author of a book, you're also a songwriter. Quite efficient one too, and it must have been very complicated. But how was it for you to get into that mood and into that project? And
It was awesome. No, look, it was great. I was a little bit confused because I needed to find out like where the verses were, where the choruses were, and all that kind of stuff. But look, other than that, I was in contact with Andrew and just was trying to pinpoint to fit in all the words into those sections. To make a verse, to make pre-choruses, and to make choruses, and so forth. But it was great, and I had to. He's kind of described to me what the book was all about, and so I kind of had to, when I'm reading those lyrics, like with Mask and Victim and all that kind of stuff, I'm reading them, so I've got to kind of create that atmosphere of what all that is about.
The take on the character.
Yeah, exactly. And, but as you said before, look, other vocalists could have done this because they've got their own minds. But, every vocalist has their own technique and their own push in how they would have created it. But it was awesome that he ended up, getting me on board and me being a part of the Dark Horde. So, it was just, look, it was amazing. It was, we were in lockdown at that time, and and that actually, just helped us, or helped me, being in lockdown. Yeah, exactly. Just to keep myself busy and really concentrating and getting these things down. So, but it was just so much fun, like hearing them doing Mask, and then The Victim, and all the other songs as well, even Rebirth, because Rebirth's got a different vibe to it. And it was just super cool, and to work with all the musicians that were a part of it was just amazing as well, So
yeah, it's not something you really get a chance to do, being in each other's bands and all of that type of thing. You don't get to work on something like that different.
It was super cool.
And did you guys, thinking about Logan, Hanny, and yourself, did you guys have did Brewin kind of give you a bit of freedom, go with the flow, think what you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, because nothing was set out. So the words were there, the music was there, but nothing was kind of set out like how it was going to pan out, like where the verses were, and choruses, and so I mean,
so
once he heard the first song that I did, which I don't know which one it was.
I think it was Mask.
I think it was Mask. I think Mask, and then send off the files straight to Hanny, and then Hanny sent the file straight to Andrew, and within like half an hour I'm getting messages like thumbs up,
It was,
and even with Andrew's like
straight away,
hell yeah, bang,
this just vindicates why we got Danny on board.
It was great, and some songs that I ended up doing, and then I had plenty of time for me to kind of listen to the tracks, and then I rang Andrew and said, oh, you know what, if it hasn't gone to the guys that are going to mix it, I've got another idea that I'm going to go for it. So quickly I went in there, recorded those parts,
Typical
recorded
singers.
sections.
Which was great. It was great. Daddy didn't just go, I've done the vocals, here you go.
Typical singers. I mean, if you let them go like this, you'll be waiting on your song for pretty much 99 years until they think it's sort of perfect enough to sing it. But but in terms of music, like, did you, Logan, for example, did you come up with it and said, I think that will suit you better? Did he actually give you some inspiration? Was there any bands or references that Brewin may have mentioned in the creation process?
So I think at the start it was very much how would you say, getting across the idea of I want it to be sort of like a soundtrack, like a John Carpenter-esque sort of thing, like an 80s horror movie. I want it to be an 80s horror movie. It's set in 1989.
Yeah.
And just getting those vibes. Judas Priest was definitely a big sort of influence on some tracks. But it was very much sort of reading the lyrics and going, this is the feeling I want to get from this track. And then feeling it and going with it and going with the flow and just morphing it and coming up with riffs and ideas and going back and forth, me and Hanny, and just having fun. It was like,
which
no dictatorship, just fun.
No dictatorship, full freedom, just you inspiration.
That was super cool.
And I mean, in terms of writing, and I'm talking about the author side of things, not just the songwriter, was it something that you've always wanted to do? Was it, and was
I'd
it
say so.
always horror or sci-fi?
So you know, let me answer it in this way. I remember having this conversation with my sister. Probably I was about 10 or 12. And I remember her saying, "What's wrong with you? All of your stories are about demons and about people being killed and monsters." And I'm like,
That's middle, sister.
and I probably said it's way cooler than fairies and unicorns or something like that.
Fairies and unicorns can be,
they get a bad rap. They got a bad reputation. I don't know. You know, there's probably some cool ones out there. I just haven't discovered them. But yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a writer. It's just I've always had that imagination where I like creating things. It's just what I've always just done, regardless of whether it's for someone or not. I think the first story I wrote, I can proudly say, was a horror story. I think I was about 6. It's called The Dangerous World, and I had my brothers in it, and everyone died.
Oh.
And I was about 6.
Nice.
And I've still got it. I'm like, yep, I can see the start.
I want a copy. I definitely want a copy. No, but it's what we got to mention too is the actual intensity of the book. For people that are not necessarily reading horror all the time, like myself, I read a lot of different things at all. Like it's not just based on horror or music, or there's a lot of subject I like to read about. And knowing you from the other perspective, which is, seeing you around at gigs, hanging out with you, having a chat, and you've always been that very sweet, limit shy guy, and I swear to God, and I just read the book, and at a certain page, and I am not going to read it because we are going to get cut off the internet, people, if I do read it, and I don't want to spoil it. I finished that page, and I remember going, I'll never look at him the same way again.
I thought he was a nice guy.
I thought he was just the nicest, sweetest guy. How does that intensity of horror can come up of your mind? I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spoil the book, but did you ever thought that maybe, did you ever reread yourself and go, oh, dude, I went a bit far on that one? Was it part of the process, or you just thought
I don't think I ever thought I went too far. Because I suppose when I'm writing something, and it depends what you're writing it for, but if it's, take horror in this case, then I wanted to have, I don't want people to feel comfortable reading a horror book. I want them to be shocked. I want them to be scared. I want them to be, even if they go, oh shit, I didn't think he'd go there.
Yeah.
I want that. So yes, I would purposely to add in another anecdote. I remember when I was working with Margaret Clark back in 91, 92, she said some things to me most of her suggestions were great, but I remember one thing she said, and I won't say what it is because it's kind of a spoiler, but she said, whatever you do, don't do this. And that instantly made me go, that's exactly what I'm going to do, because it's more shocking. It gets a reaction, and it's what people aren't expecting.
It is making you uncomfortable, and I mean, it does. But and it's a good thing. It's a compliment. Take it as a compliment. It does. When the thing is, when you read this book, it's not like you can just put it down and go back to it a day after. Because when you do put it down, it's in your head, and you need to keep going because you're like, no, hang on a minute. No, come on, book, come here, please. I mean, I read it, and that hasn't happened to me in a very long time. I do have a life other than that. I have a lot of things to do. I'm very busy. I managed to read it in 27 hours exactly because I could not put it down. And having heard Mask before I read the book, I really wanted to get to read the book and grasp the whole concept, because yes, you can buy the book or you can buy the album separately and have your own little idea, but until you have both, you have listened to the album and read the book, you will not grasp the whole concept and have the whole vibe about it and have the entirety of, you know, the rawness of it. You really need to get both. It's really, I think, there can't be one with another.
I certainly always had them complementing each other in my mind. But I also wanted them to exist independently of each other. I wanted them to be something that you could understand on their own.
Yes.
But it's only when you have both that you go, so that's why such and
That's
such.
right, yeah.
And it completes the picture, so to speak.
That's right. It completes the picture, which makes it a great concept album and book.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, yeah, you have to have both. I truly do believe that you have to have both. And the particularity of that album as well is that you say it yourself, mainly on social media as well, is like you need to set those 15 minutes aside. You need to listen to it in one go. And it's pretty much the same with the book. It's like you can't just leave it aside for a week and then go back to it. You can't. You just have to get into it, listen to it, and then it will hit you type of thing. So I understand now that it's probably the reason why it took so long, because you, as you said, you wanted them to exist on their own, but you also wanted it to form that full concept and full impact. Did you ever have doubts regarding the album? Did you ever thought, you know, I don't know if I really want it to be with the book or part of the book or completing
the only doubts, if there were any, was, you know, whether that particular version that was being worked on would ever manifest. But I certainly always believed in the idea and was willing to just, you know, do whatever it takes to find a way to make it happen, you know. And I think, if you're passionate about an idea, if you believe in an idea, then you find a way to see it through. And it's often hard, but
it takes a long time.
Yeah, things that are easy aren't always really worth doing, you know, so.
Sure, especially if you got to work so long on it and so hard about it and all of that, you need to be very passionate, but you know what, saying that, we do feel the passion once we read the book and we listen to the album. We do feel the passion behind it. We do see the hard work. So, you know, it's not, it's there. We see it, we feel it, and that's the great thing about it. Now that you will have a full concept album book, that would be, you know what would be amazing? A tour. A tour. And I already know he's going to say, no, it's not possible. But did you ever picture it? Did you ever
You
thought,
never say never.
You know, what about some stage work, you know? Did you ever think about putting it there?
So, I mean, I have been in discussions with a play producer about putting on a stage performance with the cast of actors, the musicians, lighting, all of the things that go around that. But obviously there's a lot of logistics. It's a lot more complicated than just a band. And it takes time for all of those things to line up, and also for there to be the demand for such a thing, you know, to make it worth doing. But it's something I'd love to do, and you never say never.
You never know.
Yeah, you never
You
know.
never know.
But how great would it be though to perform those songs on stage for you
it'd be
guys,
awesome.
and you know, seeing the fruit of all the hard work, you know, coming out, they're coming at you pretty much.
No, it'd be great to do.
It would be a good idea.
You never know. You never know what can happen in the future.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, obviously, lots of logistic, but it is something that eventually you're considering.
Absolutely.
I'll keep you posted on that. And regarding the book, it ends in a way that I remember reading the last page, closing it and thinking, have to read it again. Did you ever thought about a follow-up?
Yes. So there's one in progress.
Aha! Gotcha.
Yeah, you know.
Can we talk about it a little bit, or is it still top secret?
No. I mean, I'd say the title's top secret because it's well, I'm surprised someone else hasn't used the title already. Put it that way.
Right.
So I'll keep that under wraps, but basically the gist of the sequel essentially is so the original book set in Howker Hills, or predominantly Howker Hills, which is a rural town based loosely on Mansfield, to give you an idea. It'd still be set there, but it'd be some years later.
Okay, right.
And things are different
that's
in
it.
Howker Hills. But the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know about that. But yeah, that's yeah. I don't want to give too many
Much
pieces,
info,
but I have sort of mapped out story arcs for the characters, written the initial few chapters. I like where it's going. It'll be intense, it'll be fast like the first book. It's very much the way I approached the first book. I know I'm jumping back to that, but the original version was 700 pages and this is 300, so that gives you an idea of how much I wanted to streamline it and make it so there isn't really any chance to relax. There's no respite. It's relentless.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And I very much want to continue that approach for the sequel. So the characters in the horror that I write tend not to have a very good time. You don't really want to be a character in one of the horror stories.
They do not have a good time. and it's funny because one of the characters' name is Daniel.
Yes.
You know, which somewhat reminds me of Danny, which is quite fun.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, how does Daniel get massacred? Does he get eaten up?
They will need to read the book to find out who Daniel is in this book.
Okay.
I don't think there's ever a good ending in those kind of stories, but but look, I'm definitely looking forward to the follow-up. Definitely. And maybe another album. Who knows?
Will it take another 20 years?
Might as well.
Exactly.
I'm not getting any younger, so if you could hurry about it.
2040, it should be released.
Yeah. Exactly.
So talking about release, the album is now released digitally, is that correct? So you guys can find it on all platforms and download the album. It is called The Dark Horde. The title of the album is The Calling, and it features great tracks such as Mask, Victim, Rebirth, all that type of things. We can also talk about where the book is available. So this is the book right here. It's called The Dark Horde. It's author Brewin here. You can find it on Amazon. It is quite a full-on book, and I highly recommend that you do get both. I highly recommend you listen to the album first and then dive into the book. You will not regret it. That's 100%. And as we said, it is full on and fast paced and exciting, and I am convinced that once you open that book you will not be able to put it down until you reach the very last page and you realize what a crazy man that one is. But you will like it, guys. So you can also find all the links in the description of the video on Metal Mat TV. You can visit Brewin's website, which is www.thebrewin.com. Did I get that right? Beautiful. So all of that, guys, I want to thank you for coming today and having a chat to us. We're very excited.
Thank you.
Can you just remind us as well when the physical copy of the album would be released, if you know a date or
Well,
not
we
yet.
don't. We don't know yet. So as soon as we know that for sure, but it's on its way.
Beautiful. And you guys, we also are going to put a link in the description below to download the album from all major platforms. Go ahead and do that. You will not regret it. Thanks again, Logan, Brewin, Danny.
Thank you.
Nice to have
Thank
a
you,
chat
Steph.
to you as always. And as
Awesome.
I said to you guys, keep safe and rock on. Bye.